Welcome, 8th grade students. Today is day 3 of our lesson. I'm Miss Guerin, and I look forward to learning with you today. Go ahead and get out your paper and something to write with while I present my screen. Okay, let's get started. So we are continuing on our lesson where we've been learning and reviewing about theme and determining word meaning with a focus on connotation and denotation. So as promised yesterday, I want you to take a look at this picture, and this one picture displays a theme or a message. So take a look at it and tell me, what do you think the message is? What is the message that the picture is teaching us? So what do you think could be one message or theme that the picture is trying to teach us? One message that I see is that no matter what obstacle is in front of you, you should never give up. So you have someone here who has been impaired and lost the use of her legs, but she has not allowed the loss of her legs or the loss of the use of her legs to stop her in competing. This was actually a picture from a Paralympic event, and this athlete was participating in that event. So one theme could be, no matter what is in your way, to never give up. What could another theme be of this picture? Another theme could be always try to move forward. That could be another message. But the main message is the one that we discussed first, about obstacles and not giving up and always pushing through. Now I want you to look at this picture, and I want you to think of a word. So I'll give you a word, and then I want you to think of a positive and negative connotation or meaning of the word that I give you. So when I see this picture, I think of the word determined, meaning that no matter what, I'm determined to finish this race. So what would be a negative connotation for the word determined? So think about it. There are several different words that you could use that would have a more negative meaning than determined. You could say aggressive. You could say fierce, even though fierce can sometimes, depending on the person, could see that word as being positive or negative. What about a positive word for determined? So if you're determined, you really want something to happen. So you could even say confident or inspiring. Those could be even more positive, a more positive word than the use of determined. Okay, so let's keep moving. We'll do another picture tomorrow. Let's review our objectives again for the week, where we're using connotations to determine meaning and to differentiate, remember, which is to tell the difference between or among multiple meanings of words and phrases. And then we're explaining the development of theme, how an author develops a theme in a story. And that can be developed, remember, through the use of characters, setting, and plot. Our learning target for today. Today, I'll be able to explain how an author develops a theme in a written work by working on I'm sorry, let me restart over. Today, I'll be able to explain how an author develops a theme in a written text by working on an independent activity. So, before we do that, though, I wanted to do one last review of connotation and denotation again, and theme. So can you say out loud for me, without looking at your paper, what the word theme means? So remember that theme means a lesson or message that the author is trying to convey or to teach us. So message or lesson that that the author is trying to teach us. Okay, quick two-sentence connotation review. You've got two words in parentheses right there, and I want you to put the negative connotation for the first sentence. So would that be, please get that puppy off my lawn, or please get that mutt off my lawn? Which one has the more negative connotation? And why? So puppy has a more positive connotation because a puppy is a cute, cuddly baby. And so when we think of puppies, we think of snuggling them. A mutt is definitely a negative connotation. If somebody says mutt, it's actually just a negative word to use about a dog. So if we were to replace the word, we would use mutt for a negative connotation. Now for the second one, you've got two words, and one is a positive connotation and one is a negative connotation. I want you to put the positive word in the blank. So would that be the stench from the refrigerator made me sick, or the fragrance from the refrigerator made me sick? Now stench is P-U, stinky. Something stench means it stinks. So that's a negative connotation. So that would be not the word that we would want if I was asking for a positive word to put in place. Now, fragrance, when somebody is wearing fragrance, it means it's perfume. And usually perfume, that is a positive word. It smells nice. So if we wanted to put a positive word here, that the best word would be fragrance. All right, so that was just a quick review. Now we're going to continue from our lesson from yesterday, where we were discussing theme. And we have this activity. And we learned yesterday about our picture of our blind runner. That's what we started about. And we talked about theme and what theme, how a theme can be portrayed in just one picture, or even in a short story or a short paragraph. Then we had how certain details of a story can develop a theme. So details about a character, the setting, the action can all lead up to teaching us about a particular theme in a story. And then we came down and we learned about Holden and Pops. And just to remind you, Holden, we don't know how old Holden is. He's probably middle school age, between 6th and 8th grade is what I'm thinking. And Pops is his grandfather. And Holden's mom wants Holden to ask Pops to play video games with him. And I don't know if you remember, but Holden said in that quote, Pops wouldn't be interested. He would never catch on. You know how he is about big, scary technology. And so we learned based on what the character says and based on the dialogue or the conversation between Holden and his mom, that Holden doesn't think that Pops would be able to handle playing video games with him because he's too old. But Mom says, no, he might surprise you. You need to ask him. And this had left Holden kind of thinking about what he should do now. Okay, so if you look at the last sentence, it says, Holden puzzled over her words on the way into school. So when you're puzzling over something, you're trying to figure something out. So he's trying to think, maybe Mom's right, maybe I'm right. So we need to move on and see about the next part of the story and find out. Then we had a chart, and the chart here was between Holden and Mom, and then it had asked for actual comments about Pops. And you see this graphic organizer, this first box for Holden and Mom, that would be a really good place for you to take a direct quote from the text, from the story, to put in this box. And then here, the attitude towards Pops, that's where you would put in your own words each character's attitude towards Pops. So that's what we did yesterday. What we're going to do today is we are going to do this little activity. And what I want you to do is you're going to read this to yourself. I'm not going to read it for you. I do want you to take a moment and look at the left side of the, it's my left side. I don't know, it might be your right side, but I want you to look at the chart that says close reading. And it says on page 70, Holden doesn't want to spend time with Pops. On this page, circle words that tell how Holden's feelings change. Notice how a character changes helps you understand a theme. Now, this is interesting because this actually relates back to our connotation lesson, because when words change, that shows you when somebody's thinking changes, and the words can help you better understand that. So we're going to look for words and circle. You're going to look for words and circle or identify them that where you can see that he changes his idea. So I want you to take a couple of minutes and read this to yourself. Now, if you need more time to read this, that is quite okay. You can pause and take more time to read. But we're going to go ahead and keep moving. So, where in the story is there a character change where Holden finally realizes that maybe Pops is a lot more interesting than he seems to be? So if you look in the beginning, Holden's playing the video game, and he is playing a video game where he's making vintage airplanes, and vintage means old airplanes. And Pops decides, he comes over and wants to know what he's doing. And Holden kind of answers, he says distractedly. And when you're distracted, it means you're not paying attention. So at first, Holden doesn't pay attention to what Pops is saying, but then he remembers what his mom said. And because he loves his Pops, he decides, maybe I'll ask him and see if he wants to look. And so Pops does. And then all of a sudden, we find out something very interesting about Pops. This would be a character detail. I'm going to highlight it right here. It says, say, is that plane a Tomahawk? You know, she can go up to 20,000 feet to evade that enemy fighter. So now all of a sudden, we realize that Pops really knows about vintage planes. So this is where the shift and change in the wording happens. And it gets even better because then Holden pivots to gape and shock. And if you're gaping, you're like, and so all of a sudden Holden's like, wait a minute, Pops knows something. And then Pops says, didn't I ever tell you about the Tomahawk I flew in 41, which is just short for 1941. So now we find out that Pops is a airplane flyer, and that he flew helicopters or airplanes. I can't remember what a Tomahawk is during the war. Okay, so let's look at this question that they ask us. Which statement best expresses the theme of the story? So we are looking for which statement best expresses the message or lesson of the story. And we've got 4 options. So go ahead and read them to yourself and see if you can find the correct answer. Okay, so let's look at them and walk through them together. And I'm going to talk out loud and kind of show you my thought process. So we've got A, B, C, and D. We'll start with A. Strong family bonds can develop only through shared interests. So that means that you can only develop a bond with a family member if you share something that's interesting for the 2 of you. Okay, maybe, we don't know. People from different generations have little in common. Now that's a very, that kind of, I could see you maybe thinking that in the beginning, but that's actually not true. Actually, people from multiple different generations can have many different things in common. So it could be that maybe you have a grandparent who really likes something that you like. So that statement is, in my opinion, that is not the message or the lesson that the writer's trying to teach us for this paragraph. That doesn't work. So we would cross that one out. C, children should always listen to advice from their parents. Okay, that's not a bad message, but is that the message of this paragraph? It's mentioned one time that Holden thought about what his mom said, but is that the overall message of the story? No, it's not, because C is too specific. It's too detailed. So we're going to cross C out. We're going to look at D. Assuming things about people may stop us from really knowing them. So when you assume something, it means you make a decision about somebody without even checking to find out who they are. And this happens sometimes in real life where you meet somebody and based on how they look or how they talk or whatever, you make a decision, you make a snap decision or judgment, but then you realize later, I didn't get to know them. I didn't listen to what they thought and how they feel. And then you realize that you have a relationship or you have something in common with them. So this one is actually a really good message. And does that message align or does it line up with the overall paragraph that we just read? Let's look at the difference between A and D again. Strong family bonds can develop only through shared interests, or assuming things about people may stop us from really knowing them. The better answer or the best answer is D, because that is the main message of the passage, that Holden should never just assumed by that Pops would not be interested in his game. Maybe Pops doesn't know how to play the game, but that doesn't mean that Pops isn't interested on what the game is about. And the game is about vintage planes or old planes. And that is definitely something that Pops has experienced. Holden doesn't realize that his grandpa was a fighter pilot in the war. And now he realizes that Pops is this really cool guy who did all of these things when he was younger. So that's going to be our answer for that question. Okay. We're going to come down here and we're going to do this activity. And what I want you to do, because we're nearing the end of our lesson, is we are going to, and it says up top that this is realistic fiction. Remember, fiction is a story that is not real. But if it's realistic, it means that the story might be fake or not real, but it could happen somewhere to somebody. So what we're going to do is we're going to read this, or I'm sorry, you're going to read this. I want you to look at the captions over here. There's a picture of a boy, and it says, being aware of a character's feelings and how they change may help me figure out the theme of this story. So I'm going to underline words at the beginning and end of the story that reveals Angie's feelings. Okay, so we are looking for words at the beginning and end of the story that reveal Angie's feelings. Now, the title of our story is One Word of Advice. So somebody is giving somebody a piece of advice. Our author is Charles Mills. And you always want to pay attention to the title and the author, because sometimes it can give you a glimpse into what the story is going to be about. So the story has numbers by each paragraph, and there are 8 paragraphs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And if you have a copy of this, or if you want to stop, you can pause and you can look at this document as well and read it to yourself. So what I would like for you to do is read this, underline words in the beginning and at the end that reveal Angie's feelings. And I want you to write those down, or just circle those words. Okay. And then I want you to look over here where it says, like many characters, Angie changes from the beginning of the story. Circle text at the end of the story that reveals how she's different. Okay, so Angie from the beginning of the story starts in one way, and by the end of the story, she changes. So they want you to circle at the end of the story where and how she changes. So that we have, that's our second thing to do. So first thing to do is to circle words at the beginning and end to show us how Angie is that shows Angie's feelings. We're going to circle other words that shows us how Angie changes or how she's different. And then we will just do those first two. We'll just do those first two. If you want to do this extended box at the bottom where it says, look at the text you've underlined and circled, drawn X next to the point in the story where it's clear that Angie has changed, you can. But I would like us to focus just on those first two. So I would like for you to take a minute. I want you to pause this video and read this to yourself. I'm going to keep going as if that you didn't pause. Or I'm sorry, that you paused, but I want you to go ahead and take as much time as you need to read these short 8 paragraphs. Okay, after you've paused, and please feel free, if you need a copy of this story, it is linked onto the main page on RPS Learning at Home so that you can have it in front of you as I'm reviewing it on my screen. So let's look at what we did. So I asked you to circle things at the beginning and the end that show Angie's feelings. And so we have some things that are already underlined. We see that Angie was worn out preparing for the school career fair. So a career fair is a fair that's about different jobs. And it says here she'd spent hours researching companies, contacting executives, and making sure the school had the technological capability to handle state-of-the-art presentations. So she's under a lot of stress and pressure because she's trying to get this career fair off and ready. It says down here, with 3 days to go, she whisked into the media center and greeted her friend with, Kareem, I've been multitasking like crazy and I still can't imagine how I'll get everything done. So this is when you have a major deadline in front of you and you think, I only have 4 hours left, or I only have 1 day left, and I'm not going to have enough time to finish this. That's what she's saying when she says multitasking like crazy. So Angie's feelings at the beginning of this passage, she's overwhelmed, she's stressed, and she's worried that she's not going to be able to get everything done that she needs to. Let's go to the end. We're just going to skip down here, okay? Let's go to paragraph 6. On the day of the fair, Angie looked as she were having the time of her life when Kareem saw her. If you're having the time of your life, that means you have no stress and you are just having the best time ever. So this is an opposite feeling than how she felt at the beginning of the story. And then she says, "Oh, Kareem, did you see Danny's introductory video? Wasn't it fantastic? I could never come up with that myself," she gushed. Angie realized that she needed to give credit where credit was due. "From now on, call me Angie the Delegator. The best thing I ever did was hand that clipboard to you." Okay, so somehow, even though let's pretend we did not read the middle part of the story, somehow Angie realized when she was starting to run out of time that she needed to ask her friends for help, and she did. And with doing that, everything got done that needed to get done, and then she learned a valuable lesson. What is that valuable lesson? The main lesson is you can't always sometimes do it all by yourself. You need other people to help you. So that would be one message or theme from this short story, is that delegating, giving people tasks, is better for the big picture or for whatever project you're doing. Okay, so that's one message. There definitely could be another message as well. We will stop there. Tomorrow, what we will do is just look at these few questions, and then we're going to do a little bit of writing tomorrow because we've not done any writing so far. Let's go back to our presentation. And I just want to review again, what did we cover today? We talked about theme. Say out loud to yourself, what is theme? And then how does an author use theme in a story or text? So this is where, in the story we just read with Kareem and Angie, how does the author use Angie's character to demonstrate a particular theme? There's two things that are done by showing Angie's character. Showing Angie's character and showing the usage of the word, actions of the character also helps us better understand the theme. So the dialogue or the conversation between Kareem and Angie, her sense of feeling overwhelmed at the beginning, which is negative connotation, to then at the end of the passage where she says, fantastic, she gushes, she has not a care in the world, no, she's having the time of her life. Those are positive words, or there's a positive connotation there. So you see that shift from negative to positive connotation, and that shift in connotation shows you the theme or the message that the author's trying to show you, which is to always collaborate or work with others to get a project done, because sometimes you can't get it done by yourself. Okay, and what will we learn tomorrow? We will continue learning about theme and how an author uses theme. We will read a short story and identify a theme, and we will explain and reflect through the character, setting, and plot how the theme is developed. So tomorrow what we will do is we will read, you will read a short couple of paragraphs, and you will identify that theme and answer a few questions, and then we will reflect on how we were able to determine that message or theme from this paragraphs that we read. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I had a great lesson with you, and I look forward to tomorrow's lesson where we will pick up where we left off. Have a great rest of your day.